When you think of New Orleans, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it the wild and raucous parties that happen all year round, but especially during Mardi Gras? Or is it a place that has a complicated history with crime, a reputation that grew even more pronounced following Hurricane Katrina? In this video, I visited New Orleans to find out if there's more to this city than what we often assume. I explored neighborhoods and areas that most visitors rarely get to see for themselves. I also connected with locals to discover what life is really like for people who call the Big Easy home. One of the locals I had the pleasure of meeting during my visit to New Orleans was a pedicab driver named Tree. He moved to New Orleans nearly 20 years ago.
I came to New Orleans from Maui.
That's what I was wondering, because you have an 808 area code number.
I had gone out there and was working on ships out there out of the port of Honolulu. And a shipmate of mine, Miss Tanya, we had hit it off. She was just different. We were having fun all over the islands, but at the end of the day, for her, you know, she was from here. And so Hawaii wasn't enough for her. And so she was ready to come back to the city of New Orleans. And I'd never been here. So I didn't know the pull, the gravity that New Orleans possesses, okay? So, you know, I said, hey, Tanya, you wanna go to Japan with me? I'm thinking about going to Japan and living over there for a while. And she said, hell no, I ain't going to Japan with you. But if you wanna come live in New Orleans with me, you're certainly welcome to. And so I said, okay. And that's how I wound up here in New Orleans.
What was it about New Orleans that you felt so drawn to, or what is it that made you fall in love with it in particular?
Well, if your audience might not be from the South, like I am, they might not know that Southerners need one thing more than sleep, air, or water. And that is stories. We need stories, right? And we've got all the best stories in the U.S. The North really only has one story to tell, and that's of Paul Bunyan and his big blue ox, Babe. That's it. They're done. That's all the stories they got. The rest of the stories from our country all come from here. We're all about stories here in the South. And I grew up with stories, and storytellers, and storytelling. And when I got here, this is a story lover's paradise right here. So I have to tell you that, you know, first of all, I was drawn to the stories, and then the architecture, and then the food, and then the music. And after a while, you know, people would ask me what's my favorite thing about the city, and I realized that behind all those subjects were the people of this place. They're really different. And that's what makes New Orleans special. It's people.
Coincidentally, as timing would have it, a nearby street vendor called us over to offer us some free water.
I'm coming. I'm gonna be over there in just a minute. All right, we're coming for some water. How much? I wanna get John a water. How much for a water for John? You got it.
As I grabbed 2 bottles for Tree and myself, the vendor introduced himself to us and took a moment to tell us about the history of the neighborhood we were in.
This is as he told you, this is the Treme Center. This is the whole area we used to be Treme, first African-Black community in the United States of America. Okay. Everything was black owned. We sold everything. We had this was our fresh market, nightclub, wash house, dry cleaners, restaurants. Everything was here. They built the bridge strategically, which kind of broke it away. Then Katrina came. We sold, that had destroyed everything. Think about ownership as a black people. So that's gone. Now you're in Armstrong Park, which is where the slaves came in free at Congo Square and danced every Sunday. Every Sunday you come here, we drum, we dance in honor of our ancestors. We had a market there. I represent the market every single day for my ancestors that came here, that died, sweat, blood, and was killed. Whatever the case may be, I honor them by selling, by trading. Okay. That's what I do. So you just got 2 waters from the ancestor market at Supreme, 517 King Solomon, Dr. Solomon, 504-209-5104.
Oh, that was cool. I like interactions like that. That's
Oh
what
yeah. Well, it wouldn't be New Orleans otherwise.
That's
what
I'm
true.
looking forward to when I go to places like this or anywhere around the world. There's just kind of genuine interactions like that.
Yes. Well, if we ain't got nothing else, we got genuine.
Okay, all right, Tree. Where are we now? Are we still in the French Quarter?
No, we're over in the Marigny.
Marigny, okay.
Yeah. It's a whole different world over here.
So the other day when we met, we were talking about I wanted to make a video to kind of show a local's perspective on what it's like to live here in New Orleans. And I was curious about what are some of the things that people get wrong about the city, the misconceptions, the perceptions of what New Orleans is and what the actual reality is of living here on the ground. So I was curious what your take is on that.
Well, thank you for asking that question, John, because that's the one I want to answer. I meet people from all over the world day in and day out, and 6 out of 10 of them at some point in our time together will ask me, is it safe to go over there, or there, or there, or wherever? The question is, are we as violent as they make us out to be in the media? And the answer is indubitably not. I always like to stop the cab when I'm answering this question. When people ask me, is it safe if I go over that way? And I just say, well, let's look as far as we can see in that direction. And we got no gunshots. Nobody's screaming or yelling at each other. Nobody's trying to stab each other with a knife. Now we can look back in the other direction where we just came from, and let's just see if we see any sign of violence at all. Nope, just lots of pretty pink houses with pretty pink flowers and pretty pink flags, and people walking around just happy as they can be. Look, there's a woman walking alone in the middle of the day. I mean, I don't know how they've managed to shove every act of violence into the TV or the telephone or wherever you get your news from. But the moment you turn it off, and I don't mean to make it sound like people aren't human here, that somehow there's an angelic group of people here who don't have firearms. I guess we could say we have as much capacity to have violence as anywhere else on this earth,
Right.
including jungles or rivers and lakes. And I'm talking about animal violence on animal violence. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, there can be violence anywhere. But somehow there's just this embellished or ensconced notion that somehow we're at war here, that this is a war zone. And, the answer is no. It's the opposite. It's just heaven on earth here. And I can almost hear the skeptic on the other side of that screen. But what about Saturday night, Tree? I'm telling you, you can come out here at 3 o'clock on Saturday morning. You can come out here at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. You can come out in September. You can come out in February. It don't matter. Pick a date. I like to tell people you could walk to Tucson and back and not see one act of violence. And you're going to have to think hard right now, ma'am or sir, whoever's thinking that skeptical thought. When is the last time you actually saw physical violence in front of you? Not on TV, but in front of you. Keep thinking. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, one other thing I was wondering about is just the tradition of all these colorful houses here in the city.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Do you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Here, we'll just pull over here in the shade and we'll talk about it. To answer your question about why we have so many colorful houses, we can primarily thank the Spanish for that. When they sent colonists over here, those colonists would adopt Portuguese names called Creoles. The Creoles loved color, except of course they didn't use that term color. They used a term called chau vive, which was a kind of quicklime. So what the Creoles would do is they would cover the bricks with a layer of stucco over brick. And this is a good example. If you look over here at Buffa's Lounge, it's got stucco over brick. But back in the 1720s when Creoles were building these houses, they didn't have kilns or paint or anything that we've got today. So they were making their mortar out of the earth from around here, and they were making chaud vivre from quicklime. That's what chaud vivre means, it's quicklime. And then you can take any number of the flowers that we have around here, and you can mix those in. You can fold in those flowers into the quicklime, and they'll dissolve and create colors, such as peaches and yellows and greens and blues. And then over the stucco, they'll paint the chaud vivre. And it adds like a sealant over stucco, over bricks, which are held together by mortar. All of which were layers to keep out moisture and airborne plants, such as bromeliads and epiphytes. And I'll just tell you, I'll end this little story on this note. New Orleans does not see itself as a southernmost American city. It sees itself as a northernmost Caribbean city. New Orleans was known to the Creoles as the crown jewel of the Caribbean. And we have our back turned to DC, and we're looking out over what was the old Bourbon Empire. And everywhere you go throughout the Caribbean, your houses are going to look more like this.
Tree is an awesome wealth of New Orleans knowledge, and he's just a great person to hang out with. So if you're ever in the Big Easy and need a pedicab ride or guide, you can call 504-488-6565 and ask directly for Tree. That laid-back afternoon I experienced with Tree in the French Quarter, Treme, and Marigny was on par with what I witnessed in the other parts of New Orleans I explored by myself. Areas like Magazine Street. It's a 6-mile stretch of New Orleans that's not nearly as tourist-heavy as Bourbon Street, and it retains more of a local vibe thanks to its mix of boutique shops, art galleries, cafes, and restaurants. One of the things I really like about this area is just how many trees there are. It gives it a lot of shade and just keeps things cool in the area, which is nice. It's a great place to walk. On another day, I also paid a visit to City Park, New Orleans' largest and oldest outdoor attraction.
It's a little bit further north of the French Quarter and the more touristic parts of town. This is the area where they have New Orleans Jazz Fest basically every year. So I'm gonna go walk around, check things out, see what life is like out here.
You can stop by the New Orleans Museum of Modern Art, which features extensive exhibits of European, American, and African artwork. But while I was at City Park, I checked out the Sculpture Garden, which features over 90 art pieces spread across 11 acres.
I don't think people's first impression of New Orleans would be a place so peaceful and calm like this, but that's what we have here at City Park. I'm gonna hop on this bike here and then head towards Bayou St. John.
Bayou St. John is a historic neighborhood in New Orleans known for its tree-lined streets and homes built in a mix of architectural styles. Here you'll find everything from Creole cottages, shotgun houses, to even larger Victorian homes, many of which are over a century old.
Check that out. Beautiful houses. This is a cool little area here.
As a neighborhood, Bayou St. John dates back to the early 1700s, when Native Americans showed French traders that the bayou was a shortcut to the Mississippi River. By 1718, settlers started building homes along the high ground near the bayou.
It's just really quaint, that's how I would describe it. Just really quaint, subdued, relaxed. Again, total opposite of what you would assume New Orleans to be.
Now, living in New Orleans is an experience that, in some ways, is different yet the same as visiting as a tourist. I know that's a little bit contradictory, but to get a better understanding of this, I met up with Shawnee, another New Orleans local who I connected with. She invited me to hang out for a day in the Bywater district and check out one of the handful of homes she was house sitting on behalf of a few different friends.
Hello, welcome to the Toasted Den.
All right.
So this is Steve and Penny's house, but it's also the Toaster Den. We are the crew of Toast in New Orleans, and so the Toaster, I'm going to take you to the Toaster, but I'll just give you a little bit of a tour first. So all of the art in here is very purposeful and original. A lot of it is traded. Steve is an artist where he'll make art and then he'll trade with other artists. So this is his workshop.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's also our crafting station. So like during Mardi Gras, we have this whole thing covered with like glue guns and glitter and all kinds of craziness. And this is Steve's office where he, you know, wheels and deals, makes his, but he has so much extra art stacked up. He just switches out the art on the walls. So it's all kind of stacked up in here. This is one of his masterpieces. It actually, he did some similar work for a local hotel here in New Orleans. Yeah, we have lots of music nights. We play the piano outside. We cook a lot of food here. We're gonna have a party at 7. Jen's coming. This is where we feed the cat, and then we have some issues with cats right now. There's a bunch of strays eating all the cat food, so we have to just let in the one cat that belongs here.
Oh, okay.
And this is the toaster. So we put pieces of toast coming out the top of it so that it looks like a toaster. And we drag it around the Bywater on the week before Mardi Gras. This is our crew. We all dress up as breakfast items.
Okay.
So this is actually someplace you can stay if you want to stay over here. We have a little AC unit in here.
Oh, really?
I've lived in here for months.
It's like an Airstream or something.
It's a knockoff Airstream, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful little home.
Yeah,
I'm often living here. Like this is before I had my apartment in New Orleans is where I lived.
Oh, okay.
So if you come out here, you see, and I don't have a key to the studio, but Steve has lots of like open studio days where he's, you know, meeting people who are interested in art. Oh, it's open. Yeah, so this is just kind of like when he does an open studio, he'll just invite people to come and see his art. He sells a lot around Jazz Fest. I don't know how the lights work. We just built this thing like literally a month ago. It was an empty lot back here. But yeah, this is Steve's workshop. And then out here we have where he works. So he makes everything on that tool that's in the middle of the yard. It's embedded. And so we're always out here in the yard working on stuff. Have lots of parties, lots of, we make some paella and that thing that's really nice. I remembered it. So this is just a sweet little efficiency apartment. So it's the back quarter of the house.
Was the house originally designed this way, or over time did it get partitioned in different ways?
I think that probably they added this kitchen in later, but you can see it's still pretty old, but the house itself is very old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know how old the house is?
No, I would have to ask Steve. I think he said 140 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's got a lovely clawfoot in there, but it doesn't have a shower. I think it had one, but we took it down. So this is just, you know, my little paradise. I hang out here and I love it here. It's like it is like home, you know. I mean, we all just share. Steve is so kind and generous. He just lets Andrea store this here. It's not Steve's toaster. Andrea is the owner of it.
Okay.
But he just lets her store it here.
So how did you all meet?
Andrea and I met in a Kundalini yoga workshop.
Okay.
And she said to me, you know, I have this group of friends. We do some really weird things, but you seem like you might fit in. And I was like, what kind of weird things? And it was instant. I mean, it was instant. Like, we all just, like, it's a group of friends where I don't have to, there's no need for any
You don't have to try
pretense of any kind. Yeah.
This trip taught me that New Orleans is a city that thrives on its sense of community. It's a place that attracts an eclectic mix of people like Tree and Shawnee, who give the city its vibrant and colorful character.
How do you think New Orleans has changed you since moving here?
Well, I mean, I've matured. I mean, all the way. Sometimes people ask me if I grew up in New Orleans, and I say, well, Not the way you're talking about, which is usually in most people's minds 0 to 16 years old when people say, where did you grow up? But I've been here for 16 years now, right? I've done a lot of growing up here.
Is New Orleans a nonstop party? Sure, if that's what you're looking for. But it's also a place where you can simply appreciate the creativity of the world's best artists without losing yourself in late night revelry. And is it dangerous? As Tree said, it's not home to an exclusively angelic group of people. But from a day-to-day perspective, it's definitely not a city that's constantly under siege.
So I've said from the first time I came here that it's the city I know where the most weirdos in the world live, and I prefer to live amongst weirdos. But it's a caring kind of town, caring weirdos.
Amen. That's why we're here.
And of course the music scene is unrivaled on earth. So if you're a dancer, come on down to New Orleans.
So if you visit New Orleans, I hope this video encourages you to step outside that Bourbon Street bubble. There's a whole other side to this city waiting to be discovered, as long as you're willing to look for it.